United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is adoption of the agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
we are going to make one amendment to item 10. For the executive session, we're going to add subcategory 1F as a basis for that motion. And with that amendment, I would move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
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 All ayes. Item 4 is our consent agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
there are no changes to the consent agenda, so I would move that we approve the consent agenda as published for the mayor to sign and the clerk to attest.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Palmer?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes. There were no items moved from the consent agenda. Item 6A is under community presentations. We're celebrating our 125th anniversary, and I do have a proclamation, but I thought I would see if Lila or our Historical Preservation Commission has remarks first.
I don't know what to say.
Say thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the commission, thanks for allowing this opportunity to talk about 125th anniversary of the village of Meridian. So with that, I'm going to pass this to Lila and then to our Vice President, Josh.
Oh, gosh.
Pressure.
One of the things
line
that
up.
we've been doing, getting ready for this anniversary, or trying to get done by this date, is to have an inventory of the people who owned all of the buildings in Old Town, in the chain of ownership, with as much as we could put in at the time about businesses and the locations and so forth and so on. So here's your document. It says, drafted working document for original town site building owners, last updated tomorrow, 14th. Is that today? I haven't looked at the calendar yet. But anyway, it contains in order taken from the Alliance title records, which we have copies of, for the chain of ownership for every property in Old Town. And we hope that people will fill in on it as they go. I have a copy for the mayor's office. I have a copy for us. One copy has gone by email to the Downtown Merchants Association. And I've forgotten who we did the other one for, Hillary.
Just us. Just for me.
HPC.
Oh, for HPC to work with. So you may be all asked to ask who owned your building before you were there. Do you know? Do you know what business was in it? Who was there before they got there? To try to complete the records for the Old Town. We have I think all of the subdivisions, but about one or two from the Alliance Title Company, because I played old lady and walked in and said, could I have a copy? And one of the ladies who was there remembered when she was downstairs in the old high school building, and I'd go downstairs and work on it, and she said, give her anything she wants. So we have a lot of resources to do property owner chains for the whole town.
So some things that we're going to be working on as part of this whole 125th year. We had a really successful level of effort for our Historic Preservation Month in May. So when we ran our tours 2 years ago, it was sort of, I think we ended up having 8 to 9 folks that came out to tour with us during Historic Preservation Month. When we did that this May, we had 40 people. We had multiple groups of people that we were touring in the heat. Dick Nurse opened up his home and actually allowed like a museum walkthrough. And we took these groups around for hours. It wasn't a quick hit, like, 10 minutes, walk around, get some Pokemon, go happening. It was like legitimate sharing history, really, really great. So when we came back as a commission after that, they're like, well, what were the things that we did right that we can then capitalize on going forward? So a couple of the things is we realized that we had launched the Downtown Walking app the prior year. And that was a big motivation for people then to actually, at their fingertips in a digital way, have content and media. So one of the things we did when we redid our walking guides is we had a couple of the properties that we didn't have current great photos on. We contracted with a local photographer to take some better photos. What came out of that then is the realization that we had lots of properties outside of Old Town, barns and old buildings and structures that we just didn't have great photographs of. And we were running into situations where we were seeing public notices that these things were going to be developed, and we wanted to capture, images of those things. So Lori and I went out in our truck Sunday, spent about 4 hours with our target list of about 23 properties in Meridian that are eligible for National Registry but aren't registered yet. We enjoyed great cigars, and we got photographs and stories. We actually found one of the homeowners was like outside, so Mrs. Clapper. So her home is actually a Frank Lloyd Wright inspired design that's up on the hill south 10 Mile on the other side of the freeway, looking over the valley. It's stunning. So all that to be said is we ran an RFP a couple months ago to get best value photography support. So we have 2 vendors that we selected. So we're going to be using them to capture imagery of all these great sites that are in Meridian. And then that is feeding into your other project, which is?
We're working on or toward an atlas.
Lila, we need you to speak into.
We're working towards an atlas for Meridian, dating with that map that Tammy and I argue about from 1904 onward. And we have really quite a good collection, I think, and that will be coming in the future. One of the things I need to put into his remarks was, we did that first original survey in 1987. The requirement for national registers must be 50 years old, so there's been a few years since 87. So a lot of the properties that have come on since that first survey was done, and we only did inside town. We weren't as big an area as for Meridian then as we are now.
Wow.
So I would say the last thing that we're working on, which I think is probably the most important thing for this upcoming year, is we really didn't have an idea as to how much media and information Lila and the Preservation Society have collected and the work that they've done. It's overwhelming. And we're just benefactors of all this knowledge, and yet we've reached a place where in this digital age, it's not easy for us to share and disseminate that information. So we got engaged or started the process of working with a local agency that does large format scanning so that we can start identifying items, because we also don't want these things being handled necessarily. But we want to be able to share this information in a way that's relevant and current and is able to preserve the items. So we're going to be working with Lila and her team on identifying those pieces, so we can start systematically going and creating that. And we feel that that does a couple things. One, it helps preserve those items because we'll have fewer hands that are interacting with them, but it also allows us a much broader disbursement of that history and that knowledge. We'll be able to put that up on the city's webpage. We'll be able to share that through social media where people can see these things. It always amazes me how many times people come through either the vault or the Heritage Building. We have old historic photos up there, and then they go, wow, I didn't realize that existed. So I think the more that we can capture those stories and the images and the things associated with it and get those dispersed digitally, I think that only draws more attention to the great work that Lila does, which is awesome. Yeah, it's incredible. So. She makes us look good. We're eye candy. She's the real worker bee.
You're eye candy.
That's all I got. So thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I appreciate it.
Well, if I could come and join you, I'll read the proclamation. I'll present this to Lila. And I do want to thank the Historical Preservation Commission for your engagement. I've seen the change and the passion that's come over the commission over the last number of years, and it's so exciting. I think Lila at one time thought that she and just a few of her closest friends were going to be the only ones carrying the torch for promoting the history of our city. And it's nice to see that we have a number of community partners stepping up and being an engaged partner to it. So thank you both for joining Lila, and with that, I'll read our proclamation. Whereas 2018 marks the 125th anniversary of the original settlement, which is now known as the City of Meridian. And whereas Meridian's earliest settlers lived along 5 Mile Creek, where there was running water, the U.S. Postal Service soon established a mail drop along the road line, which was called Hunter after its superintendent. And whereas in 1893, an Order of Odd Fellows chapter was established and adopted the name Meridian for its lodge in recognition of Idaho's principal surveyor's meridian, which runs along Meridian Road as it passes through the town. And whereas the original Meridian town site was filed on August 18th, 1893 on homestead grant land belonging to Elza Ann Zinger, whose husband, Christian, filed the plat and called it Meridian. And it has truly become the center of the Treasure Valley. And whereas since its beginning, Meridian has been built for business and designed for living by establishing itself as a dairy center for the state and its small town friendliness, which is celebrated each year during Meridian Dairy Days, and throughout the year being a safe, attractive, and vibrant community. And whereas we wish to thank the Meridian Historic Preservation Commission and the Meridian Historic Society for keeping our history alive and thriving. So therefore, I, Tammy DeViert, hereby proclaim August 18, 2018 as the City of Meridian's 125th anniversary in the City of Meridian. And I urge all citizens to join me in celebrating the City of Meridian's 125th anniversary. Thank you so much, Lila, for everything you do to preserve our history. We have a rich history, and you have brought it to life through all of your efforts. We appreciate you. Come on, Hillary. Hillary. No, Hillary. Hillary. No, you need to go.
You get in here too.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we feel old? Okay, it is item 7A, which is Resolution 18-2090. Resolution reappointing Steve Vlasic to seat 3 of the MDC, Tammy DeViert, seat 5, and Nathan Mueller, seat 8.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Lowe Roberts.
I move that we approve Resolution 18-2090, reappointing Steve Vlasic to seat 3 of the MDC, reappointing the mayor to seat 5, and reappointing Nathan Mueller to seat 8.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Palmer.
Madam Mayor, help me understand why, so the very existence of MDC is the or the reason it exists is because this council created it, or technically the state created it, but the reason it exists is because a council in the past made that happen. why is it that this council doesn't have any representation on Meridian Development Corporation Board?
Because individuals that are appointed as individuals. And last year when Councilman Byrd was reappointed, the council accepted that reappointment, and he will serve out the seat of his term, which was 3 years.
Madam Mayor, maybe just some questions about MDC, kind of where it's sitting. Where are we sitting with the debt on it? How much in debt is MDC right now?
I think that Ashley had reported on that when we had our joint meeting, but she will be reporting within this next month as part of her quarterly update to council.
Can you ballpark it?
Not off the top of my head, I can't.
Within a couple 100,000?
I would rather not guess, but I can certainly get that back to you at our next meeting.
Within $500,000? Madam Mayor, the reason I ask is, I mean, my understanding is you've been on the board since it was created.
No, I haven't.
How long have you been on it?
I think I might have replaced Councilman Borton when he stepped off of council, I believe.
That's about right.
Madam Mayor, when was that?
2008.
Years ago?
So a decade. And you can't ballpark within $500,000 how much debt?
Madam Mayor?
Mr.
The
Borton.
information that you're looking for is probably in the audit, MDC's audit. Whatever that answer is probably there.
Madam Mayor, it's true. I mean, I have it in front of me. So on September 30th, the debt sat at $505,080. So my concern is that yourself, having been on there for a decade, couldn't guess within $500,000 as to how much debt this board is, and you've been sitting on it for a decade. This council has no representation on that board. So I would hope that we could push this off and maybe have a discussion with some of the missing councilmen and maybe some that are here, if anybody else is interested in serving on that board, whether it's yourself or that's replaced or any of these other two, so that this council, who is, again, responsible for the creation of this, that has incurred debt. You know, we brag all the time about how we're so responsible as a city with our finances that we're not in debt. Yet we've created this slush fund organization of unelected members, with the exception of one, that has put us into debt, and that one elected couldn't even guess at how much debt that organization was in.
Well, the council did establish the urban renewal district, and the state code by purpose does separate, because they are two different entities. And so my representation is also as an individual, but also as the administrator of our budget, because some of the decisions that are made by that board do impact our budgets and need to be considered as part of those discussions. Because otherwise they could be making decisions on behalf of maintenance requirement by the city. And so that is one of the reasons that I have served to be that conduit. So, any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
with these three appointments, I assume they're all reappointments, so you didn't seek out new appointees for any of these positions?
No, we didn't.
Then, so Madam Mayor, I guess I'm safe in my assumption that we didn't solicit any members of the city council to see if they wanted to be involved with the MDC?
No, in fact, I don't believe that the city really needs to do the reappointments. And maybe Mr. Neary can correct me, but the MDC board can reappoint their own commissioners. This is just a formality.
Madam Mayor, I guess that would be, if we don't need to appoint them, then why is this before us?
I do appoint new members. Mr. Neri.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, so the way the code works is the expiration of the term is when it's considered a new appointment, even if it's a reappointment of the same person. It's considered a new appointment. That's what comes to the city. When the person steps off in the middle of a term, with a term remaining, the board then appoints members for the remainder of the term. So the end of the term is the trigger point for the city to choose the representative.
I got that backwards then.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Palmer.
then with that, I move we reject resolution 18-2.
I already have a motion on the
As a
table.
substitute motion, I move we reject resolution number 18-2090, and would request that before a new resolution is brought forward, that it's put out to the public if anyone's interested in filling any of these positions.
I'll second that for at least for the sake of discussion.
Okay, discussion.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
I guess then a question for Mr. Palmer, what he's hoping to achieve.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Palmer.
I would like that, hopefully there would be someone on this council, I don't have the time to do it, but I would hope that someone on this council would want and have the availability to serve on it and would have interest to come forward and at least be interviewed by yourself or whatever the process to come forward and ask us for that. And also to put it out to the public if there's anybody in the public, especially those who are paying the taxes within the urban renewal district, to serve on the board rather than just reappoint those that are on there. And if there's nobody else interested, then by all means.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Borden.
Just from a procedural, it may make sense, motion maker's okay to table the motion, have that discussion. You've got, as I understand it, 7 members of the public on the board, is that, or 8 members?
No, I believe there are 9.
You have 1 elected official, 8 members of the public?
Yes.
So, the deadline, I believe, Mr. Neri, is the end of this month. I think the term expires end of August. I think that's sorry to put you on the spot. Perhaps if you're okay, Mr. Palmer, you just table the resolution and then well before next Tuesday have these discussions and figure out the mechanics of what you guys are trying to see if we got a couple of the council members, get them in the discussion, gauge their interest, and maybe they share concerns or not, I don't know, but is that
Certainly, yeah.
get you where you want to be? And then on the next Tuesday, you might have perhaps even a different resolution.
Yeah, whatever accomplishes the
Okay.
purpose.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
I think Councilmember Borton is probably on the right track. I guess what I would be interested in knowing, is there any desire from you to allow somebody from the city council to serve in that role?
Well, certainly the members that are currently serving are interested in continuing that service. So they have all contributed in a number of great ways. So I wasn't looking at finding new board members, and neither was the board. So I guess, no, it hadn't come up.
So, Madam Mayor, I guess I think that there isn't any real purpose to delay this any longer. If there isn't any desire on your point to appoint a member of the city council to sit on the urban renewal, that same decision would be a week from now or 2 weeks from now that it would be today. As disappointing as I am to hear that, I don't see any reason to delay if your decision wouldn't change. So I guess we have a motion on the table, it can fail, and then the original motion would be on the table.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Palmer.
So it's my whole purpose, and especially in the uncomfortable questions I was asking you, are the point is twofold. One, I really want representation from council on the board, and two, I don't want representation from you on the board. So my main goal is to definitely get a councilman on there, and that's where I'm at. Vote. Which motion do we?
I think the substitute motion was,
To deny the resolution as written.
okay, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Palmer?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
No.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Abstain.
Okay, so the motion fails.
Motion.
I mean, the motion passes.
So, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Board.
Same concept can go forward. Some of the questions and concerns can be raised. We've got 2 council members missing. Explore it further. A resolution of 3 people will be back, hopefully next week. And it might all be worked out. You might get concerns addressed, but this will probably be next week, and if not next week, the week after, just to meet whatever deadlines there are for reappointment.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Department reports. Item A is under our Community Development Department. Cameron.
Madam Mayor, members of council, it is a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to present our annual report to you. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you. It's been exactly, well, approximately 7 months since I came on as the director for the Community Development Department, and things are going fast and furious. So it's great to actually pause and look back, really, on what's been going on and report to you some of those exciting things that are happening in our department. So I'm just going to kind of paint a picture for you where we want to head and kind of give you guys a quick, lay of the land as we go forward here with the presentation, but it'll also go kind of in order of how things are rolling. Note as well that there are other reports even on this agenda today that will give you more meat. So for example, Caleb is going to be reporting to you on the, CJ. Oh, cool. Thank you. Perfect. Caleb is going to be providing an update to you on the staff report. We've had comment back from you, obviously the directors and other department partnerships that we have that contribute to that. So that'll be a great report for you, as well as Bruce will give a detailed report on the monthly update of the Building Services Department. So we're excited to report on those items as well in greater detail. But just wanted to kind of touch base on the department, what we are, what we do, and how we really are moving things together as one team. Give you some staffing updates, give you a little bit more detail. Caleb will dive into the planning piece. Bruce also will discuss the building services, which includes building and land development. And then Brenda, unfortunately, is not well, and so she's going to be presenting to you at a later date, hopefully the 28th, if we can reschedule it for that time for her portion. And then just opening it up to you all to understand what you're hearing and seeing, things that we could, what you like, things we could be doing better, and get any feedback that you may have. So with that, just real quick, I want to give you just a brief look at the department. So we got kind of 3 legs to our stool. Bruce obviously has building services and land development under him. But really just want to kind of take this opportunity to give you a little bit of an understanding of some of the things that I've been doing in relationship to our department and the leadership team. So with that, I just wanted to kind of take that opportunity to just give some serious kudos across the board. You know, especially in, you know, with everything that's been going on with the budget amendment, with everything that you all have been doing and showing your support of us and what we're trying to accomplish. It's just been humbling to be right there in the front of that, seeing that all happen. So kudos to you, Madam Mayor, and Councilman Palmer as our liaison. We just appreciate the level of support that we're getting. It makes the lift that much more doable, and it's just fun to be a part of it. So big kudos to Bruce and Brent in the Development Services Department, along with Sam. In fact, Brent's right now reporting to the BCA, one of our major stakeholders, on these very topics as well, to really engage our stakeholders. And that's one of the really fun things that I've been able to be a part of, is kind of reinvigorating that stakeholder group, getting to know their thoughts, their feelings, how we can best move forward with these things. And that's just been a great partnership. Also, you know, in advance of Bruce's presentation, I'd be remiss if I didn't give some serious kudos to our HR team, our city team. HR, Public Works, IT, Finance, and many others that are really just crushing it. I mean, so proud to be working with them and seeing all the hard work they're doing. And you'll get a taste for some of that as we go through the various presentations. So real quick, just to give you a quick look at the department, kind of how it functions and flows. You know, you see here, economic development really is kind of the tip of the spear. And as, you know, business and the economy kind of comes into the city, how that transitions then into planning, and how that the planning functions integral into getting things entitled and moving and in the proper zones. And then, of course, that folds into the development services piece, you know, to get things, make sure their easements are correct, platted correctly, and so on, addressed, and then all the way through construction. And then all that comes right back to economic development and how we retain that economy in our community. So just, you'll see a lot more of this type of stuff from, you know, the various reports, but I do want to kind of just pause and give some kudos to planning. Caleb and his team with the comp plan coming along. Won't steal any of that thunder, but it's just been fantastic to see the response that we're getting because of their efforts, and what that will mean to our community in the future. It's just, it's the right time. It's going to be an incredible effort, and it's a big boulder to push up the hill. So I want to give some serious props to the planning team, and also just with the day-to-day stuff. We're seeing a lot of applications come through, and increasingly more complex as we do infill, redevelopment, you know, some complexity there too. So we're just really proud of them. Thank you all for your support in advancing the associate planner position. We're excited about that and filling that position here soon, as well as your support of the CDBG program as well. Just real quick, on the ED side, just really excited to see things like the Paylocity project coming to fruition, the Brighton Corporation headquarters, a lot of expansion, the village, things like that going on. But just wanted to, you know, express again our appreciation for the support of the SWOT analysis and the industry specific analysis that we'll be doing here shortly. That's going to be a big component of how we plan in the future, how we target specific industry, exterior and interior, to the community. And so just really appreciate the council's support of those initiatives. Wanted to just throw this slide in as far as the org chart goes, just to give you a taste of kind of, we're growing not only as a community, but it's certainly as a department. And this just gives you a little bit of a taste of where we're heading, because you can see there's still a lot of empty positions there, but also how we're filling that. Again, from my position at in the director role, I am so pleased with our hiring efforts. Granted, it hasn't maybe been as quick as we would like. I think Bruce is going to share some statistics with you that really shows how actually quickly we are filling these things, comparatively speaking, and the amount of time and effort that we are putting into it, because we feel like we do need to get it right, and that the people that we are hiring are exceptional. And so I'm just grateful for the efforts there, and seeing how that's all coming about. So just real quickly, Bruce, again, we'll dive into this a little bit more. Just wanted to show you some of the team that's been added since our last report. If you notice, that whole bottom row, we have an inspector team. I was talking with Sam the other day, and we kind of just pinched ourselves. It's like, how did this happen? We have our own team doing our own inspections in our own way, and that's pretty powerful. So we're excited about Michael LeBeau. Hopefully you'll get a chance to meet him. Just a stellar human being to build this team around, and we're proud of each of these guys. And Riley just started on Monday, so we're excited about that. But more growth to come there, and Bruce will add some to that. But excited about our permit tech team. We've mentioned this in previous, but Ashley and Renee, fantastic hires. High aptitude, wanting to learn more, branch out into other things. Recently went to a conference, came back just jazzed about how advanced our department is, or our permit tech team is compared to others in the West. And it's just good to see that energy. Can't speak enough about Stephanie Leonard, fantastic planner, excited about her future with the team. Of course, we reported to you previously about Kevin Holmes, our new assistant planner as well, just a great hire, high capacity folks. And then Ryan, as you know, is in our addressing division, and just a great hire as well. So excited about that. And then you got that bloke that for some reason you can't shrink his picture in the middle there, but just a fantastic team, and excited to be a part of it. But I just wanted to kind of leave an anecdote with you. A lot of folks are saying, oh, gosh, how's it going? What's going on? And I actually posed these questions to staff in one of our staff meetings, and I said, how many of you guys have built your own house? And a few people raised their hands. How many of you guys have started your own business? A few more raised their hands. How many of you guys have implemented a significant software package? I think actually somebody did raise their hand on that. I was surprised at that. How many of you guys have hired 20-plus employees? How many of you guys have equipped those employees with fleet and equipment and state-of-the-art tech? And then on top of that, ran other enterprises? And, staff kind of chuckled, and I just said, that's exactly what we're doing, and it's awesome. There's a lot going on in our department, and I am just so proud of how everyone is working hard to accomplish what's put before them. So it's just humbling to be a part of, and just grateful for the opportunity. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Caleb.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Caleb Hood here to give you a quick overview of what's been going on in planning mostly this last year, but we'll look forward a little bit as well. You know, we see you quite a bit, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth of what we do because, again, we're on your agenda pretty much every week. So I feel like, you know, you kind of know what's going on in our department, but I don't want to, you know, gloss over that either. I do want to, you know, appreciate our staff and want to acknowledge them and really kind of look back a little bit. So here's our bread and butter. We'll start with that, right? The permitting, all the new projects. This isn't all the new projects, but these are some of the highlighted projects that Bill came up with. So Bill oversees this side of things, the current planning side of things, supervises this, make sure we move forward and get things processed efficiently with his team. You know, this past year we've done quite a bit of multifamily. Multifamily and storage is kind of the theme, I think, this last year. We see them going up all over the place for some reason. There's just a lot of those types of projects, but there's some fun ones too on the screen. And again, this isn't comprehensive by any means. I do want to give some props to Sonia and Josh. They, as you know, you see them quite a bit. They do all of our hearing level applications, and there's again been a lot. And I don't want to toot our own horn, or you know how busy we are, and I get tired of hearing it because busy's the norm. Why do we keep saying we're busy? Because that's just how it is, and it's been that way for a long time. But there's some big projects, you know, the Costco's, you know, Sonia saw those through. We've had a lot of neighborhood associations and meetings and neighbors, and you know, educating the public, having them understand our processes, how they can get involved, when's the appropriate time to get involved, you know, hearings, those types of things, hearing them out, what their concerns are, and just working with them. ICOM and some of those other big projects that have been going on just this past year with even some of the housing for that project. We are updating, and Bill will speak to you in I think it's the next agenda item. No, I'm sorry, finance got in between all of our presentations somehow. But on the staff report format update. But Sonia's also taking some of that and going to update our conditions of approval. So that ties in nicely with the staff report as well. So it's seamlessly done, integrated in with our enterprise software, so we can take some of the comments we received and the conditions and roll them right into this new template that Bill's going to talk to you about in a few minutes. And Cameron just mentioned it, but Stephanie and Kevin have been great additions to our team. Our front line of defense, essentially, they're on call. You know, people walk in or call. They're the first point of contact when folks don't know who to talk to. They help them out with zoning questions and can I build a fence here and how tall can it be? And they've stepped right in and up, and their customer service is, I'm just so impressed in just a short amount of time, how much the code they've picked up and their willingness to help folks out. So great there. And again, Cameron mentioned it, but the new associate city planner, thank you for advancing that. We're moving into the interview stage and hope to have somebody hired just as soon as we can. So to relieve some of that effort or the workload that we currently have. So some of the other special projects. So we're working on, you know, our bread and butter stuff, but we do have some time for some kind of special projects and other projects. Here's a couple of examples this last year. Brian McClure put together a couple of these handouts, and he's great. You know, he's got kind of that technical, he can make things pretty for us a lot of times. And he developed a couple of these new handouts. We're hearing quite a bit of concern, and it still exists, quite frankly, the difference between land use and zoning and those designations. So you see it now as the title slide and most of the PowerPoint presentations to try to help, again, educate the public on the difference between low-density residential in the comp plan and low-density residential in the zoning code, or the UDC. So we developed a couple of these flyers. Some of them are on the back table. So when people come, maybe they're in council chambers for the first time and they don't have any idea. Just, again, trying to educate people. And I think it speaks well to our customer service, and we really do try to help people through the process, whether you're our applicant or just a neighbor of a project. So some other recent efforts, and this is really hot off the press. We've put some of these maps online, and there's hyperlinks there. These interactive web maps. So this is basically real-time information you can get, and you or the public or staff, we all use this to see some of that base zoning information. So some of the idea here is let people fish for themselves. You can select a property, it drops down the zoning, the acres. There's hyperlinks within that to the Ada County Assessor's information. So if you want information, pictures of the property, those types of things, it's all available here on the website through these maps. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can turn some things on and off, roads and those types of things. So I think it's a really great tool. We use a little bit, it's the version we typically use as staff is a little bit more on steroids. We have some more information that we don't push to the public. But this is going to be a great tool that can really, I think, again, help people understand their properties, adjacent properties, zoning, and the like. So I'm really excited about that. So that's just live on the website as of the last couple of weeks. Here's some other things that we've been working on and will continue to work on. So I said we're going to look backwards, but we're also looking forward a little bit on some of these things. We completed, Bill led the effort with the UDC work group to amend the UDC for home occupations and then the food and beverage and the distinction between breweries and microbrews and drinking establishments and what constituted those. You all probably remember those discussions. We're still working on maybe some tweaks to our open space and amenity packages and residential zoning as well. Again, staff report reformatting, Bill's going to speak to in just a few minutes. Getting ready for the rollout for online submittal and electronic plan review. So that's been a big lift, kind of planning, as building services move forward with hiring all these new folks. That's kind of our role in a lot of this, is moving to electronic submittals and online plan review and those types of things. So that's really what we've been most heavily involved with in this transition of our department, is being ready with them to implement those. Trying to keep the website up to date. Mentioned some of those just on the previous slide. And then the third to last bullet, the AUP template, kind of goes hand in hand with even the UDC text amendments that I mentioned in the first bullet, and just making that more streamlined. And at the same time, we did the certificate of zoning compliance for just use changes, where there may be some things, and again, try to minimize not only the cost, but the time to get new tenants in buildings. And then this is something we're still a work in process, but similar to what Bruce is going to speak to in a minute. But coming up with performance measures. How do we define success? What's the expectation for the customer? What's the expectation from staff on any given task? How long should it take? And so we'll set some parameters, and something like 90% of the time we want to hit these benchmarks. There's going to be some exceptions to the rule, but generally this is what we're going to tell you, what we're going to try to do things in the amount of time, tell our customers this is how long it takes, and then start to report those things out. So we're developing that. I imagine in the next couple months we'll be sharing what we think those things are and what we think you'll care about and our customers will care about, and get some more feedback from you. And then we'll continue to monitor that after we set that up. So just a little bit on the comprehensive plan. I don't want to bore you all too much. I know you all know we're in the middle of this process now. But I do want to, again, take a minute here just to highlight the comprehensive plan. Brian McClure has taken the lead on this. He is our project manager on this. He's kind of the brains behind the operation, but he also, executes a lot of the things we're doing. You see him at these events. He's on the street doing the stuff too, but he's helping organize and make sure we move forward with it. So really appreciate the help there from Brian. So just a little bit of an update if you've been haven't been paying attention the last month or so. We're into phase 2 now. Phase 1 was all about values. We had over 1,500 people participate in one way or another through the website. Again, we've been in a lot of events, but we asked people what they valued. We took that and then we crafted that into 5 different themes. 5 different themes, and there's 4 supporting statements underneath each theme. And we're asking people right now, so survey number 2 is on the website, to look at those statements and say, does that adequately reflect the theme listed above? So you see one here, vibrant, the vibrant community. So that's where we're at now. If you haven't been to the website, again, I would encourage you to check it out. We're going to then move into phase 3, and that becomes where we get a little more technical. And that's where we're going to be setting up some subcommittees, working with our commissions a little bit more closely, ACHD, ITD, some of our other partners, and really kind of digging in, using the information from phase 1 and 2, what we're hearing from the public, but really kind of doing a check with our partners, our agency partners, if you will, and others, key members of the community, that have expressed interest in, digging in to taking some of what we're hearing and turning those into policies where we want to go. So phase 3, we're going to be a little bit more quiet with the public involvement as we kind of craft some more technical, and then we'll go back out to the public in phase 4 and say, how does this feel? Are we still on the same page with what, again, not straying too far, hopefully not at all, from the values that we started with? Do these policy statements really reflect the values and the vision of where we want to take our community? So that's kind of the overall way that the project will move forward. So quickly, again, we've been at a lot of events the past few months, and through September we will be, and then October, November be a little bit more quiet, and then around Christmas time, the month of December, again, we'll have some more things where we keep the public involved. We don't want them to, I say we'll go dark, but we're really still going to be active, and the website will certainly be up to date that entire time as well. Here's just some of the things we've been at over the last few months. Again, would encourage you to check out the website and take survey number 2, which is up right now. I'd also encourage you to look at some of these other things at the bottom. The ideal wall and the pin map. We're getting quite a few comments there. So look at those, see what people are talking about. Some of their thoughts and ideas that they have in the community. They're kind of neat tools. Although one of the maps is a little bit outdated with some of the street layers, and we're growing so fast, the aerials are out of date. And there's some comments like, I don't even see my subdivision on here. Sorry, we're trying to get that updated though. So then transitioning a little bit, and I know the mayor hates all things transportation, and I won't do that in this slide, but it's just one slide.
I love all things transportation. Okay. What are you talking about?
Well, now that the door's open, no. This is just a quick summary though of the past year, and basically recently completed projects. I'm not going to read those to you. Quick update though on Pine. I don't know if you've driven through that intersection. It was closed this weekend, but they got the intersection paved. They're going to be paving the rest of it in the coming weeks. Officially, the project isn't done until mid-September, so there may be some punch list items and things like that, but I envision it'll be substantially complete before that. But that's when the contractor really says they'll have things done there. State Highway 69, I believe the clerk also forwarded you on a postcard mentioning that work is also under construction. So that was last Friday, I think, just recently. So it was this is a follow-up to when ITD came. They're going to put that median south of Overland in and do some restriping of the lanes to be a little more efficient getting onto I-84 across the Overland Road intersection. And then they have 2 signals they're putting in at Hubbard, one at Hubbard and one at Lake Hazel. So that work is August to October. So that work's going on now as well. VRT, you can kind of see what's going on there. At least it's listed there. Harvest Transit it seems like it's a successful program. And again, looking at that third van this next year through the draft budget. And then going to start really talking about fixed route in Meridian and what that looks like to maybe take the next step with public transportation in Meridian. Compass, those first, all the alphabet soup there, those are the work groups that staff participates in. Some of them are quarterly meetings, some of them are a little more frequently every other month or monthly. And then we have some pathway grants that the Parks Department manages through Compass as well. On the ITD front, 2026 is the priority right now. Continuing to coordinate with them on utilities, lighting, access points, landscaping, sidewalks, those things as they begin to design that corridor. I will also just provide you a quick update. As of May 17th, Costco did execute their STAR agreement with the state, so that's a go. That agreement is finalized now for at least that their segment from Linder back to STAR, State Highway 16. So that's done. And then I just listed a few of the projects with ACHD, some of the key projects, and we'll get into this at the end of the agenda a little bit. But that's where some of the larger projects are in the next couple of years in Meridian. So that wasn't too bad for all things transportation. And then CDBG, this is the projects that are currently underway. Some of them, in fact, have already wrapped up. Design of the downtown sidewalk construction projects near Coal Valley is complete. The design is complete. We'll move into construction for PY 2018. That action plan has been submitted to HUD. And then down payment assistance program, NeighborWorks, they're both working on getting those projects closed out for this year. Public services are there, and then admin. And again, you heard from Christopher before his departure on program year 2018. So I went through that pretty quickly. With that, I think I'm going to hand it over then to Bruce, unless you have any questions on all this presentation that you want to. So, thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you for joining us, Bruce.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure being in front of you today. It's been a long time. I don't often get the opportunity to come and present. I'm a little rusty, so. First thing I wanted to just throw out there is just Cameron and Caleb both mentioned the workload, the volume we've got going on, and then add on top of that our community development transition that we're doing with building services. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to our staff, the staff of planning and building and land, Brenda even. Everybody has just picked up an extra burden and helped carry it. The project has taken a lot of hours from Cameron and Brent and Sam and myself and Mindy and others. And man, our staff everybody has just stepped up and picked up the load and carried it and done it with a smile on their face. We're super excited about where we're going.
Yeah, don't touch that.
Yeah. It's my static electricity or something. So on our report, building permit activity, we pulled these from the monthly dashboards that you guys receive. You should have gotten your August issue yesterday. These are just some projects that are, I wouldn't say random. There are some that I hand-selected off of those dashboards over the last 12 months. More notable projects. The residential activity over the past year, you can see we have increased quite a bit on our single-family homes. The values have increased, and I think you've probably seen the reports coming out of the news about the median home prices in Ada County. So that's not too big of a surprise on those values. The multifamily, I think we've all seen it and felt it, but pretty significant increase in the volume there of that multifamily activity. Excuse me, the value, it went up as well, as you would expect. The new commercial, there wasn't as significant of increase, but there was an increase all the same. In the number of permits, however, the value is a little bit lower. Square footage is up. The TIs, that's an interesting segment that, we pretty much doubled our volume of tenant improvement projects. The value's up, the square footage is up. Don't really have an explanation of why, other than we built quite a few shell buildings, multi-tenant shell buildings, and they're filling up now. There's also a lot of turnover in tenant spaces. So don't really know the reason why, but that is one segment that we've seen a pretty good increase in. Caleb mentioned Brian and his willingness always to jump in and help wherever he can. It was kind of funny on this particular slide. I had asked Brian for some information. Caleb had asked Brian for the same information, and he so graciously was able to just pull it up and produce it for us. But this is the citywide assessed values year over year. I think it's pretty interesting that you see that total and change value over $1 billion. So that's a pretty significant number. So that comes to the end of the development services. Cameron?
Madam Mayor, the members of council, thank you again for this opportunity. And like I mentioned, we'll have Brenda come back up before you guys sometime soon. Sorry, I touched the mic. But wanted to take this opportunity now to open it up to you all. If you have any questions or feedback that might be helpful to us in our efforts and serving the community better. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Cameron, and thank you to your team. You have been busy, and it's been appreciated, the work that you're doing, and a continued. I always see a smile on the employees' faces, and a good attitude in spite of everything that's coming your way. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Council, any questions?
Madam Mayor?
Ms. Little Roberts.
If I may ask if any changes are happening, and Caleb, this might be your question, I'll direct here, but any updates regarding the position that Chris left? I know we were discussing a different look for it potentially.
I'm going to touch this one and see if that, oh, okay, we're good. Let me start by apologizing because I had that in my notes and I did not bring that up. So yes, so just yesterday we got the information to HR to begin noticing for the full-time position. That wouldn't become effective until October 1, but we're 6 or 7 weeks out now from the new fiscal year. So we're going to move forward with the backfilling that position. We're also simultaneously, and this actually started off while Christopher was still here, talking with Boise about doing a short-term contract with them to get us through October to help us crutch through again this time where we're short. And they would be doing a couple, there's just like 3 or 4 tasks basically in there. One of the major ones is for them to help us prepare for the on-site monitoring that HUD's going to do in September. So that's basically going through our files, making sure everything's there that should be there. There's duplicates, cleaning it out basically, but preparing the files for when HUD flies in and looks at our files and things. So apologize, I had that in my notes, handwritten, and I did not mention that during my, so I appreciate the question.
Great. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kavner.
What Caleb's up. Caleb, can you talk to us a little bit more about this second survey? Maybe you had communicated that to us and it went over my head, but I wasn't aware of a second survey and just what we're hoping to accomplish from the second one and maybe what our communication approach is with our citizens, whether they were participate in the survey the first time around or this is reaching out new people. Help me kind of understand that piece.
Sure, Madam Mayor, Councilman Cavanagh. Yeah, it's both. I mean, you didn't have to take survey number 1 to take survey number 2.
Okay.
And in fact, we've made it a little bit more easy now if you haven't. So survey number 1, you had to register. And we didn't ask you a whole bunch of questions, where you're born, your social security, but we did have you register your email address. Now you can take the survey and we ask you what part of town you're in so we can kind of know that we're getting representation that's, and if you don't live in Meridian, that's one of the options too. I'm not in the area, but we want to know who are hearing from at least. But you don't have to register on the site. So again, survey 2 is based on what we heard from survey 1. But it's not exclusively you didn't have to participate in 1 to hit 2. We're trying to get the word out to everybody. We've had some community partners. For example, Wahoo's Roaring Springs was willing to send that out to their email distribution list and limit it to the 83646 and 83642 zip codes. It's awesome. So it's kind of a check-in. We heard we think we heard what you value. We took that and we made that into these statements. Vote for the statements that you most... So I've been telling people when I'm out on the street or at parks usually at these events, I tell them, what do you most care about? Which statements most resonate with you, or would you like to see City Hall work on for the future? What's most important for you for the future community of Meridian? So pick 5 or 6 of these, and you vote for the ones that you most care about. So that's what we're hoping to get back, is to really then filter through those 20 statements and say, boy, these ones really rose to the top. This is what people care. Not that the other ones don't matter, but these are the highest of the highest priority.
Great. Thank you. Great work, really.
Any further questions? Thank you again and appreciate the information.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, 8B is also under community development. And I believe, Bruce, you're up. I guess that's one way. Do it before Bruce gets up there.
Yeah, wider. The bottom one. There we go. All right. Well, Madam Mayor, members of the council, again, it's great to be before you. Wanted to present our monthly update on our project. The budget amendment recap is something that we're going to continue to keep in this presentation just to keep it fresh. That's just giving you the numbers. Want to again acknowledge the interdepartmental team that has pulled together just phenomenally to make this project possible. You know, I mentioned the building community development team, but we've had finance and purchasing have played a huge role. IT is a huge role. HR, you'll see in a little bit, just the work effort that they have done for us, and it's amazing. And then with our facilities folks doing the tenant improvement projects that we've had on the first floor and second floor to make room for the team. Again, here's the budget amendment, just to recap where we started. And I'll go through with each of the sections and we'll give a kind of a status update on where we currently stand. As you remember, when we launched into this, we suspected that we were gonna go through a little bit of a struggle with the hiring process, unemployment rate being what it is, and not a lot of talent available out there in the pool. And every jurisdiction around us is fishing in the same waters. Everybody has job announcements out there for the same positions that we're trying to hire for. So our backup plan was to do an RFQ selection process and see if there were private companies that could help us during the transition as we staff up to have them help kind of augment our services until we can get fully staffed and get there. So we've done a lot of work effort in that area, and I'll give you a little more information on that here in just a bit. We have negotiated short-term professional services agreements with DBS. And from last month, you'll recall that after we did the budget amendment, we were issued a notice of termination on the mechanical services from DBS as well. And so that is effort that we're going to be launching into to, again, put out RFQs to see if there's other service providers out there that can help us during that transition. And then, of course, we'll be back in front of you to talk about what is the future of the mechanical program, because that was not included in our original proposal. Earlier, well, I guess it was last week, we had a conversation with DBS about the electrical arena is the area that we've really struggled with. There's just not a lot of applications coming in for the positions we have available. And so we talked with DBS about the availability of them providing services beyond the September 30th termination. And they have come back to us and said that they are willing. They've got a couple of guys that they can provide for us. And so we are in those negotiation process now. They are putting together a proposal that they're going to get over to us hopefully next week, that we'll be able to take a look at and see what the impact of that is. Current expenditures to date for the building section. Now this is just the building section within community development is that $6,737. Most of that is just buying some of the office type things for our inspection staff that I'll tell you about here in just a minute, like right now. So the new FTEs that we have on board for building, we do have our building inspection supervisor, Michael LeBeau. He comes to us with a lot of experience. He is a certified building official, came out of Prineville, Oregon. He also recently has been working over in Pocatello, and so he's a great addition. As Cameron said, he's the right guy to lead the inspection team, building the team around him, and it's been phenomenal to see how quickly this team has really solidified. We also have extended an offer to an electrical inspection supervisor. He's accepted the offer, and we're just waiting on the background process until we can make an announcement on him. We've hired 3 building inspectors, John Shane, Jeffrey Dart, and Riley Orozco. These guys are just, we've been very careful about our hiring process, just like we would any other position that we hire for. We kind of feel that the Meridian team is an elite team, and we want to hire the right people. And these guys fit that bill. We've got several more interviews scheduled, and we're continuing on. Also wanted to throw out a big thanks to Lorelei McVeigh and Tim Campbell in Public Works. Tim is our safety, I'm not sure exactly what his title is, but he heads up the safety programs for Public Works. We wanted to get ourselves plugged in with these guys early. Public Works has built a very strong program around safety for personnel, especially on the construction sites and that sort of thing. So we didn't want to have to recreate the wheel, and these guys have done a fantastic job of putting together a strong program, and they've been very gracious about sharing information with us, and a lot of written documentation, and just really got us set off on the right foot. So big thanks to them. So for the contracts and stakeholders, we have master agreements in place with 4 different organizations. And again, these guys are going to augment our services with personnel as we are staffing up to be able to provide the services. Our goal is to have as little of an impact on our customers as possible, and we feel that this is going to be a great way to handle that. Brent Bjornson is in the process of working with Keith and those master agreement contractors to get task orders in place. Task orders are that's where you really get down to the specifics, the nuts and bolts, the compensation, the expectations. And so that's the process we're in right now. State Division of Building Safety has, as part of the negotiated short-term agreements that we have with them, they are performing 50 building inspections per day, and they are scaling back on plan reviews. So timing of getting our PSAs or our these master agreements in place with these other contractors is working out very well. We're able to just slip it right in. Stakeholders. As Cameron mentioned, we've been meeting with DBS and some builders on a pretty regular basis, and we've had just excellent support from them. Brent is at BCA right now, doing another presentation, just keeping them up to date. Cameron and our staff has worked with Casey Emery. We've put together a letter to our stakeholders, just kind of explaining our situation and making sure that everybody's on the same page. Part of the purpose of that letter, too, was to let them know some of the challenges that we have. These guys have an interest in our hiring process, and keeping things moving along, and they've been just fantastic to work with. They've They've offered to also write a companion letter that'll go along with Cameron's letter that is just to help support our effort and get it out there. Once we have that in hand, we're also going to reach out to the Snake River Valley chapter of the BCA, which takes you over to the Oregon border, southwest Idaho. And so want to get in touch with them too and make sure that we cover the entire southeastern or southwestern part of the state. Make sure that everybody that currently does business in Meridian is aware of our situation. As I mentioned, Finance Department, Keith Watts has been awesome to work with. We have 4 vehicles that we've purchased and outfitted. We have them branded with the City of Meridian logo. We've got the cradle points installed. They are currently on the road doing inspections. It's been fantastic. Unfortunately, the timing of the 2018 models, they can't find any more in the state, and so typically on the state contract is what we try and buy vehicles on, and unfortunately the state of Idaho has not issued the 2019 bid list yet. So we're in a little bit of a quandary there, but Keith is continuing his efforts to look for additional vehicles for us. IT, hardware. We've purchased all the hardware and received it. The only thing I think we're waiting on is just once we get on the second floor with our plan review team, we just need to get a printer, an all-in-one printer purchased and sitting on the shelf. Hardware expenditures to date, $42,900. Software. To companion with the new Project Docs software was our Excella Inspector app, which, as you might recall, we've had Excella for several years now, but the Excella program has an application that is specifically designed around the inspector, and it operates on the iOS platform. So we were able to purchase iPads for all of our inspectors. It's kind of nice. It's a less expensive option than outfitting them with ruggedized laptop computers. The software is pretty phenomenal. It has GIS mapping capability, and it puts a pinpoint on the map where every one of your inspections are and routes you to them in a most efficient route. And they status their inspections. They can take photographs on site, and it attaches it to the record. So it's pretty neat stuff. So software expenditures to date, $183,168.77. Continuing on the software, the Project Docs software, it's installed. Training was held on the 24th through the 26th of July. Went very well. City staff has just really jumped on board and embraced it. And we've got team members in each functional group that are operating as the subject matter expert. We've trained the trainers, and now they're going to train other staff. And it's been pretty awesome to watch how quickly they've embraced it and are willing to share that knowledge. So Excella integration into Project Docs is 50% complete at this point. User acceptance training is currently underway, and that should be wrapped up here pretty soon. On HR, we have reviewed, screened 368 applications. Days to fill positions, it's 76.75 days. We have 4 employees that have been hired and are currently on the job. We've extended offers and they've been accepted, but they're not yet on the job for 2 additional employees. We've conducted 58 interviews, and each interview panel will have 4 people roughly. We've expended 224 hours of panel hours. it's been a pretty amazing process to go through, because we are not just settling. You know, we are being very careful and considerate of the people, not just their qualifications and their abilities, but also their personalities and their fit with the team. And I think we've hit a home run on everybody that we've hired, and it's pretty dang exciting. Recruitment expenditures to date, $16,030. Most of that's just with advertisements. We've conducted several interviews via Skype. The furthest geographical distance away that we've done is Jacksonville, Florida. So we cast a big net with this effort. So, tenant improvement summary. Max Jensen and his team have just done a fantastic job. The AV production room for Casey is 100% complete, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see that yet, but it's just right over here. The inspection room, which is on the other side of the mail room off of receiving over there, substantially complete on the 1st of August. The guys are currently in there. There's still some final touches that need to be done. They need to put the glass in the windows and hang the door and a few minor things, but for all intents and purposes, they are occupying the space and loving it so far. There was some of the furniture that was delivered that was damaged during either shipping or unloading, and so Max and his guys are working with Correctional Industries to rectify that situation. The plan review room. So this is the second floor. This is where all of our plans examiners are going to be. Scheduled to be substantially complete by September 30th and final by October 31st. Carpets down, paints on the walls. The room it looks fantastic. Again, got to get glass in the windows and doors hung and some of those types of things. And they still got some lighting to hang, but it's coming along really, really well. Yeah, expenditures, $17,157. This is the tenant improvement on the first floor, the inspection space. We went with the VCT tile on the floor. We got guys that are coming in off of construction sites, potentially got mud on their feet, and it's a much easier alternative to keeping things clean as if you got a vinyl floor versus carpeted floor. So the second floor tenant improvement, you see on the photo on the left is back in the corner. We have a framed up. There's a conference room back in that corner that's equipped for 10 individuals around a conference room table. We'll have a TV monitor on the wall that will be able to project plan reviews and different training things to staff and our customers. We do have some of the desks have been delivered. Cubicle walls are going to be delayed a little bit. We knew that going into it, but the pendant lighting, or not pendant lighting, but the LED lighting that will be hung in there is coming within the next few weeks. Good chance we'll be occupying the space before we have cubicle walls, and that's just the way it is. So we are really excited about our progress so far, and look forward to completion of the project and filling the rest of our positions and making the premier organization for the city of Meridian. Stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor, just real quickly, Bruce, thank you. Just wanted to mention another quick item. We wanted to also highlight a couple of employees. Of course, I mentioned the hiring of Renee Hibbard in our permit tech line, so we're excited to have her and her advancement. But then also wanted to just point something out that we have a strategic initiative in as far as the department goes, which is growing our team. That's in their own personal and career development, but also what that means to the department. I did want to highlight Mindy Smith, who, as you know, has been a permit tech for many years. She's now the lead permit tech and is also doing and training for plan review with Sam. So these are the kinds of things that we're trying to instill in the team. It makes us broader, makes us stronger, makes us more capable of delivering service, quality service at a quicker pace. So I just wanted to mention that to you as well.
That's great. Thank you, Cameron. And thank you, Bruce. You guys have been busy. Any questions from council? Very thorough update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 8A or 8C is our finance department. Welcome, Todd.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor. Pleasure to see you guys again. Appreciate the opportunity to provide you with our quarterly update. This quarterly update pertains to our year-to-date results. So where are we as of today? So the data that we're going to provide you today represents 10 of the 12 months for the fiscal year. We're still collecting data on the last 2 months remaining. So we're going to go over the general fund year-to-date results, and then we'll provide you the enterprise fund year-to-date results. So we'll start with the general fund. The general fund's current revenue position is a little over 100%. That's a great thing to be in. Again, we have 2 months remaining, so we are guaranteed that we will meet our budgetary projections of our revenue numbers of 52.1 million. We don't expect the number to be too much higher than the 100%, maybe right around 103, 104% of where we're standing. It all depends on the impact fees and the development fees that we're continuing to generate over the next 2 months. But this is a great position to be in. Again, we will meet our revenue projections that we promoted to you 12 months ago. The next slide I'm going to show you will kind of display this 100% in our various revenue streams that we track for the general fund. These are our major general fund revenue sources. Again, if you added up all these bar charts, it would equal that 100.2%. Property taxes, a little over 100%. We're off by 1.14 on the positive side. Our goal is to be on a 2 to 3% variance on either side of the budget. We're on the positive side for this one. We should not be collecting any more revenue for this particular line of a large value. We'll get a few more payments come in, but we'll end up the year at around 101.6%. I'm going to go over the items from left to right. So if we look at licenses and permits, again, this data here still has 2 months remaining in the fiscal year. Licenses and permits, we're at 24% where we thought we would be, and that's primarily due to the collection of impact fees and the building permit fees that we're approving here with the development of the city. Again, we do have 2 more months to go. So again, this number will be higher, all dependent on the growth and the impacts of the building permits that we approve. The next one is intergovernmental revenue. This one is currently sitting a little bit lower than we expect, but we're okay with that. This is primarily due to the state revenue sharing program. It's a timing issue. We've not received all of our payments. We believe we'll be closer to 100% as soon as the liquor revenue and the state revenue sharing arrive into our coffers. But again, we're okay with that. Where we're standing is just a timing issue. Franchise fees, we have no concern there. We're right about 100%, and we'll just generate a few more dollars between now and then, so that should be pretty close to 100%. Charges for service, again, we're 51% higher than we expected. The difference in the bar graphs, if you look at them, is currently at $600,000. Of the $600,000, we can associate $200,000 to be higher than we expected due to the home court. When we built our budget last year, we did not put in a budget for revenue dollars at home court due to the variables that we're still managing at that time. So we weren't 100% confident with the revenue generation. But this year, moving forward, we have the revenue where we need it to be. But that's $200,000 of that. Another $200,000 is associated to the planning department. Again, as you develop or as you approve the development, they generate more revenue sources. So therefore, it came in a little bit higher than what we expected. But again, charge for services 51%. Currently, it'll probably end up about $800,000 higher than what we expected, primarily due to the development and the home court. Impact fees, again, I'm not going to get into this one too much. That's 100% related to all the approvals of development. As we continue to see that grow, that number will grow higher. We will continue to adjust our estimates and projections. The annual growth committee will be meeting in August and September. We'll take the data that we have collected and adjust our projections for the upcoming fiscal years accordingly. And the last item is other revenue. It's 106% higher. Percentage-wise, it's a lot. But what that's primarily due to is our investment income. We conservatively had a projection for our investments, and the market is doing far better than we expected. And so that's what this dollar represents, or the percentage change. It's about $600,000 difference. So our investments are doing much better than what we projected. So as the city continues to see the development, again, as Cameron's team has just explained to you, and as we continue to see more applications presented to us, we will adjust our projections so that we can get these as close as possible to 100% for you guys. This slide also shows the revenue distribution. As you see, property tax is very important to us. All the other ones are variable or growth related. The property tax is a little bit more fixed. So we want to always make sure we manage our revenue sources to the best of our ability. So that is the revenue fund the general fund revenues. Now I'm going to talk about the expenditures. We'll quickly go over these for you. Revenue bar graph is still there. Personnel is sitting at 74.2%. As I mentioned earlier, this represents 10 of 12 months. So the percentage should be closer to 83%. You can use that number for the remaining of the graphs. 83% is kind of our goal. There are seasonality issues that you'll hear me talking about. On average, the general fund ends up at 97% for the fiscal year. So I don't think we're going to, based on our vacancies at the moment, I do not believe we'll make the 97% due to vacancies and timings. But again, we will be probably closer to 93% due to the vacancy issues. Again, we did approve 21 staff members late in the fiscal year. It's tough to get those filled. So again, I have the budget, but I don't have the expenditure. So that kind of skews my number a little bit. But I think next year we should be able to get closer back to our normal average of 97, 98%. Operating expense right now is sitting at 67%. Again, if you're looking at a straight line number, looking for 83%. If you looked at the Parks Department, they're really low at the moment, but that's expected. They have a seasonality of parks maintenance in the summertime and warmer time of the year. We expect them to be 100% at the end of the fiscal year, so we don't have any concerns there. But that number kind of draws down our number here, and then we also have about $330,000 in the grants that are on the books that have not been spent yet. Those dollars will be carried into fiscal 2019. We will spend it. But again, that does draw down my year-to-date number comparison. But so I've really no concerns at the moment about our financial status on the operating side. And we also have $75,000 in professional services that we currently have a contract in place for, that priority-based budgeting we've talked about. We'll be giving you guys an update here sooner than later about how we're doing on that. But we should be expending more of that for the remaining 2 months, and then also in the first 4 months of next year. And then last but not least is capital. Again, 24% doesn't look great, but please note that this is primarily due to spending and timing. We did approve Fire Station number 6, and we did approve South Meridian Park. Those are all timing issues. All those dollars will be carried into fiscal 19, so if you add up to 2 fiscal years, you'll see 100% spent. So this is more of a timing issue. We have no concerns. All the dollars will be carried into 19, and we'll have a new station next year and a beautiful park next year. So those are the capital dollars. So as you can see, oops, sorry about that. As you can see, the revenue number is strong. The budgets for the operating expenses are higher than the actuals, so that's also a win-win. So right now you can be confident that the City of Meridian finances are in a good position going into fiscal 19. Again, we will continue to adjust our forecasts accordingly and adjust our calculations for every single projection that we provide you. So with that, I'll jump into the enterprise fund, and we'll duplicate the approach with them, just like we did with the general fund. Enterprise fund is currently sitting at 93% of where we expect, or where we're at today. Our goal is kind of 83%, that number. This is higher than what we expect due to the increased growth in assessment revenues, just like the general fund's higher than 83% because of their permit revenues. So again, we're in great positions from a revenue standpoint. Again, we will continue to adjust our calculations accordingly. Like we did with the general fund, we'll look at the details of our major revenue sources for the enterprise fund. Again, if you added up all these bar charts, it would equal the 93% that we had on our previous slide. So if we start left to right, water sales, 66%, only 2 months remaining. Again, this is a seasonality issue. We're okay with this again. We generate a bulk of our revenue for the water department when people water their lawns. That is okay for us where we're at. We will get close to 100%. I don't think we'll go and make the 100%, but I think we'll probably be right around 98%, which is comfortable for us. But again, that's why you see that. Sewer sales, just a little bit shy of 83%, so we're comfortable with where we're at there. With a little bit of seasonality and water usage, that number should be right at 100% at end of fiscal year. The next two assessments, you've heard it from me, growth, and more growth. This is all based on the permits and the developments that we approve, so we're very strong there. Again, we'll continue to adjust our projections. EPA is right where we want it to be. And then other revenue, again, we're okay with where that's at as well. Engineering had the opportunity to generate a few more review fee dollars due to the increased growth. So that made up about $300,000 above what we expected. So those are the revenue sources for the enterprise fund in detail. Just like the general fund, I'll go into the expenses. The personnel is currently sitting at 72.5%. Again, we're shooting for 83. Most likely we'll end up right around 91% due to vacancies. As we continue to move forward, we'll continue to work on getting that closer to 95% in years future. But again, we're comfortable with where we're at with 91%. Operating is sitting at 63.8% for the year with 10 months completed. That gap is about $2.8 million. I can let you know that $1 million is due to consulting projects that we're going to carry into next fiscal year. So that skews the number, but we will continue to carry those dollars in the next fiscal year. We have about $900,000 over at the treatment plant that we've accounted for. And that's due to savings in chemical costs and savings in sewer line repair maintenance. Again, we had some benefits there with the program, so we got to save some dollars on those two items. And then the remaining expenses should be trued up with the seasonality of the treatment of the water during the last 2 months. Then last but not least, again, is capital, sitting at 58.3% for the first 10 months. Like the general fund, any unfinished projects in the capital side will be carried into fiscal 19. You're most aware of the large project that we have going on over there with the treatment capacity upgrade. They will be expending those dollars next fiscal year. So again, just like the fire station and the Discovery Park down south, add up to multiple years, you'll see every dollar spent. Just right now, this is where we're spending or at. The Enterprise Fund has a kind of a seasonality in spending. They're in their high spending mode. So you'll see this number increase for the remainder of the 2 months. But feel good that the dollars will be carried into fiscal 19 and the project will be completed in fiscal 19 next year. So with that, just like the general fund, I believe the data here shows that we're in a great position. The enterprise fund will be meeting the revenue numbers. The expenses are being right where the expenditures are right where we want them to be for the fiscal year. And then at the end of the day, we should be able to present to you a sound audit report in the month of February. So with that, I will stand for any questions on your year-to-date quarterly update from the Finance Department.
Thank you, Todd. Council, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 8D is under community development, and I believe that's Caleb, Bill.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Here to talk to you about the latest and greatest revised staff report. As you recall, staff was before you on July 10th to get some input on the previous version of the draft staff report. Since then, staff has met at the director's meeting and received additional comments from other city departments, and we want to share that input with you. So this revised staff report that I'm presenting, or draft staff report that I'm presenting to you today, will highlight some of the items that we heard from council and highlight also some of the additional items that we received from our Public Works Department, Fire Department, Police Department, and we'll go into those changes. And the staff report that's before you today, I've highlighted those sections that have changed from the previous version, so we can talk in length or in detail, and certainly open to any other suggestions you may have. Included in your packet that I sent out last week, I did have some metrics that the police department put together for you. Scott Coliani's here to discuss anything you have in regards to that. As part of their metrics that we hope, again, the goal is to have those incorporated into the staff report so that you all get a comprehensive overview of what the impact of that development will have within the city of Meridian. So if you can see here on the computer screen here, I have some of the noted changes. So again, the police department did provide some substantial changes. More importantly, response times, the calls of service, percentage of calls for service split by priority. And again, Scott can go into more details, the number of calls for crimes and then the number of crashes in the area. I would also mention to you, and it wasn't reflected, or also wanted to share with you that Dale from Public Works Department also sent over some changes to the metrics portion in regards to how projects will adhere to the wastewater master plan and our our water master plan as well. So again, these are additional metrics that they felt were important and enough to get in front of you early on in the staff report. So, and then if you'd notice, if there's additional specifics to that particular item, then staff will highlight that page number, and you can go directly to that page number in the staff report and read any of the highlights or concerns regarding that particular item. So again, this community metrics table is meant to give you kind of a quick blush, hey, here's some concerns or some good things about the project, and here's where to find the pertinent information to dive in more to understand that issue or that analysis on that particular item. One of the particular items that we heard from City Council is they wanted to see what developments were in the general areas. So we did, I think this was in the previous version, but we wanted to highlight it for you that we had this planned development map. So basically you wanted to see what other subdivisions or developments were improved in relationship to the application that was before you, so that you could get a greater context as to what was occurring in the area. And that kind of coincides with what the police department wants to incorporate with their metrics and their comments. So we have included that graphic. Another item that I recall hearing, and I had it on the previous version, but you wanted to know when the project was posted on Nextdoor. The clerks currently has that on their checklist that they put on the website, and we are inserting that in our staff reports currently, so that's new information that we've changed, a process that we've changed already. And then we also heard from the council that they wanted to have information on the neighborhood meeting, the date, time, and place when it occurred, and a list of attendees, or at least a number of people that attended the meeting, so that way, the neighborhood meeting, so you can get a flavor for how contentious an application may be. Certainly, you get the packet before then, but it's certainly nice to reference that, not only for you, but also our Planning and Zoning Commission as they take actions on these particular applications. One of the major changes that I've made from the previous version till now is I've actually taken 3 of the staff sections in our current staff report format and condensed that into what I now call the project analysis section. So basically, one, it will reduce redundancy in the staff report, but it'll also allow our decision makers to have all the information on how the project meets the comprehensive plan, the UDC, and that analysis that supports those 2 documents right there under one section. So you don't have to go, currently the way we have it structured, we have a comp plan section, a UDC section, and then an analysis section. So oftentimes we're having duplicate efforts of explaining a situation or issue with a project or the good merits of a project. And that doesn't always, so we're doing redundancy and stating things multiple times, and we should just have it in one area for a clear, concise staff report for you. So moving forward, I don't know exactly how that will be structured, but certainly, again, having that information in one spot so that you can see the impacts, whether or not a project complies with the UDC standards, comp plan policies that support that project, and any other pertinent information that comes from our other city departments in one section for you to analyze a project makes a lot of sense to staff. And then under the staff summary, I think this was kind of a 2-part comment that I heard. One from Councilman Palmer. He wanted something in the staff report said, did it meet the minimums of the code? Or does it adhere to the comprehensive plan and meet the minimums of the code? On the other side, we heard from Councilwoman Milam that said, well, we want to know if we strongly recommend approval, is it approval? Do we recommend denial? And so to me, this is the section where, one, we can at least share that with you and the Planning and Zoning Commission, where we can say, yes, the project meets the minimum requirements. Maybe that's not a premier project. But on the other hand, we can say it exceeds the minimums, and then you know as a body that the applicant's gone above and beyond what the minimum code requires. So you can take that into account whether or not they went far enough to decide whether or not it's a premier project. So rather than coming forward with staff strongly recommends this project, we basically say that in the staff summary that, yes, it meets the minimums, or it exceeds the minimums, or it doesn't meet the minimums at all, and at least have those conditions in place or share that information with you in our recommendation. So I guess the question for you tonight, or at least from staff's perspective, is next steps. Now, I do want to share with the council that implementing this will take additional staff resources. Currently, right now, what will happen is all the other departments will have to get us their comments. Planning will have to cut and paste their comments into the staff report. So there's a level of effort there that we're going to have to undertake in the interim. But I can commit to you and tell you that Caleb and I are working with our IT department to have this process automated and link with our Acela process. So any conditions of approval, any comments that we receive from our partner, even our outside agencies and our internal departments, would get rolled into an automated staff report and imported from the information that we place in Acela. So that work is currently underway. We have a ticket in with IT to commence with that. So again, in the interim, there is some extra work. We still have to kind of fine tune that process, how we get all of those comments to you in one concise staff report. But looking towards the future, hopefully by later this year, we'll have it all dialed in and get you the right information in your hands so that both you and the Planning and Zoning Commission can make an informed decision. So I'll go ahead and turn this, I'll stand for questions, but I also want to invite Scott up to see if you had any questions regarding the information he provided you as part of his metrics.
Lieutenant?
Madam Mayor, council members, thanks for the time. I just wanted to take a few minutes. This is a new process, obviously, for all of us, and we're kind of working our way through it. And I know that, although I wasn't here and talking with Bill, and he's been very helpful, that there was some input that the council had that they would like to see from the police department. I have mocked up or had CAU mock up a few samples for you to look at. I don't know if do you guys have them embedded in this PowerPoint?
Yeah, Scott, I'll pull them up for you.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to walk through and just a couple of them or a few of them and tell you what you would be looking at from the police side. And these are actual development applications. I was initially going to make some stuff up, but it was just easier to do this. So what we'll do is when a development application comes in and we're looking at it and it comes to my queue, I'll look at the address, and this particular one's on McMillan. We have when the hearing date is set, so I know. And what we do is we drop a pin for mapping purposes on that address. And what I'm having CAU is take a 1 mile circumference of that entire area around this proposed development, whether it be a residential or multifamily or commercial. And we're going to pull in all the data from that 1 mile circumference of that area. And that's what you see here in this. And if you look at the top, you can see the reporting district that it's in for us, the time frame in which we pulled the statistical analysis. In this case, it was from July 1st of 17 until 6/30 of 18. And can I do this? Can you guys move it down? I don't want to. Yeah. There we go. So the next area there, you can look at what our response times are in the city of Meridian for priority 3s, 2s, and 1s. And we're running about 4 minutes and 8 seconds, 7:50 and 13:22. And then what we do is we take a look at the map and we estimate what the response times are going to look like for this new development area. In this particular one, because of where it's located, it's kind of central in the city, you're not going to see a lot of variations in response times. They may drift a few seconds here and there, but that's as close as we can get it. In this particular development, you don't have an entranceway coming off of McMillan at the moment. They're not going to allow that, so we have to come into the subdivision, circle around to get into it. So currently, in that geographical area that I'm talking about, we're taking currently right now over 1,600 calls for service in a year's time. Pretty good amount of calls for that area. Of those, less than 1% are emergency calls. Most of them are priority 2s and then priority 1s. 215 crime events in that area in that year's time and 25 crashes. And I've played with this a little bit. So to give you kind of a definition and of understanding what it is we're looking at in the analysis. So calls for service response times are consistent within the city of Meridian. We point that out for you. The majority of calls for service were priority 2, so they're not emergency, they're not priority 1s. And we give some high level of what it is, traffic-related stuff, suspicious vehicle, trespassing calls, crime, the most frequent one are warrant arrests, juvenile beyond control, leaving the scene of accidents, drug issues, narcotics issues. Those are the higher level, more frequent calls that we get in this area. And then crashes, 56% were non-reportable, 36% were injury-related crashes, and 8% were just property damage. And then again, we kind of give you a definition of what a priority 1, 2, and 3 is. So this is high level. It captures what's going on within that 1 mile area. There was some discussion about providing maps. To Bill's point, this is new staff time that we have to dedicate. There's a lot of developments. And so I want to be careful initially about getting into mapping because that can take a lot more time. There's a lot more detail in that and nailing down locations and stuff. So I wanted to get that feedback from you. But this is something we're proposing from the police end. I wouldn't want to do this for every project that comes through because some of them are just a matter of pulling a CZZ and moving forward. But I would look at it for multifamily, residential, large commercial projects, large business projects where we feel like we want to get something to look at rather than every little thing because, I mean, there's tons of them. You know, there could be a gas station and that's all there is. And so get your thoughts on that as well on how I mean, we do everything or I'm just thinking we start out with the bigger stuff and let's see what that looks like, see what that staff time looks like, see how happy you are with it. So you would get something like this on the developments. You would also get comments from the police department about levels of service. How far is this from the police station? Accessibility. We would talk about roadways and access in and out, parking, sidewalks, pathways. We would try and hit on those things as needed. You know, resources is what kind of the resources look like in terms of equipment, staffing, locations. You know, parking is a big one. I would still attend all the pre-app meetings and meet with the community development. I wouldn't, unplug from that because that's important. They have a lot of valuable input when we meet with the applicants. But by and large, this is what we've come up with. Just looking for feedback, what you feel comfortable with, what you'd like to see. So I can kind of take that back and polish it a little bit and work with Bill. If you have anything, questions, comments, thoughts.
And it really is helpful to take a look at this list because there is staff time behind it. If it's information that you wouldn't use, we need to know that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Borton.
That's the perfect question. This is an example, like others, where we can generate all sorts of metrics, but if it's not, providing assistance either to the decision makers, I wouldn't want to create any of this extra work. So the question to you on this is this analysis that isn't necessary to be done within the department already in determining whether to make comments on a particular application?
Yes,
yeah.
It's a good question, Madam Mayor, Councilman Borton. Once we set it up, the template, we can populate the data pretty quickly. So we've set this up, we've structured it, and we can pull in the data from the analysis. That can happen fairly quickly. It's just there's a lot of development applications out there. So this piece, if we move forward with it, I can clean up the bottom to make it look prettier and such like that, but the analysis is pretty quick, right? So I'm not too worried about that. As if we get into the mapping, and then you really want to get down into the detail of specific crimes and locations, and then it can take a lot. In terms of the comments, I will still make comments from the police side, right? I'm not just going to give you this and not make comments. I'm going to say, hey, here's our take on this. And I put another one in there on the Waihi High School that's coming up. If you want to pull that one up, Bill, and I'll give you an example of this one.
No, don't pull that up.
Don't?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. So give you an example of something that maybe not in the city yet, but we can still make comments on it and pull it in.
We just haven't heard that application
okay.
yet.
Sure, I understand. And so we will still make comments from the police side about what we feel and what we see, so you'll still have those and they'll be incorporated into the overall summary.
Madam Mayor, I mean, that's what matters most, at least in my perspective, is this is all done on the back end somehow or in some format, and maybe it's not create as much work internally for your department, but if some version of this happens when you review a larger application, to say we ought to make comment because this isn't a location where our response time is going to be slower, or there's not a view corridor, or there's poor lighting, and we still get the narrative in the staff report that says, hey, because oftentimes there's no comment at all.
Yeah.
If this is an analysis that isn't done already, at least internally, to say we ought to take a look at these types of metrics to determine whether or not we ought to provide some specific comment. We haven't already been doing that. Is doing this helpful for the department to determine whether or not they ought to give us more info, or is it just a bunch of data that, if we didn't do it before,
sure,
how does it help us make a better decision?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Borton, yeah, sure. It does. It helps us. We have to take a little bit harder look at developments as they come in and what it's going to take. And quite honestly, a development that comes in, initially it won't take any police resources because it's not built yet, right? And so something can be approved and it may be years before it really requires police resources because it may be a multi-phase project. But it does give us a pause to look at it, weigh all that, and then come back with some sort of response in a summary for you that would help all of us understand what the challenges are going to be for the police side, response times, location of the development. Yeah, certainly. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Madam Mayor, I'm just sensitive to the time necessary to create something like this. This looks like it takes a lot of time. And if you were to say, this is too much, you guys aren't going to benefit as much as you hope. With good intentions, this is a whole lot of data that you're really just going to look at, and nobody's got the interest in saying, why do we do this? I wouldn't want to get us down a path of a bunch of data that
sure
really doesn't help. So,
and that's really up to you. I mean, what you need. I mean, I can provide a summary. We can provide this. We know there was a lot of talk about response times and what's going on in that area and roadways and stuff like that. And so this was just something we created. It's not hard once we build it. It does take time. But it's not, I don't feel it's excessive at this point.
Okay, okay.
So I'm not going to come back and say, hey, I need 10 more people to do this. So, or the chief isn't.
And there's already certain things that you've been involved with on each application, on most applications already in your environmental design, and which includes the safety lighting, exits and entrances, and some of those aspects. So this is probably one of the next step was when we approved the Oaks, for example. And the annexation went out and they started building from the back in. And what that does to stretching out the services and the impact it would have on response times. So this is making it more visible to the decision makers. If you want it in a different form, that's certainly another comment we would be looking for. But again, does this add value to the decision makers? We're trying to give you as much information pertinent to the development as we can.
You're so much better at saying it than I am.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kavner.
A couple of questions and maybe some feedback. I am not one that needs a significant amount of maps and additional illustrations. I think the value is in the data and then the necessary comments that you as the expert thinks is warranted to provide. I could imagine a scenario in a undeveloped part of Meridian where we haven't seen a lot of calls, but we have approved 2 or 3 developments in the past 6 or 7 months. And so having that piece maybe incorporated as far as a comment to remind us would be valuable. Question is related to the timetable. Have you guys discussed when this comes? Is it a 12-month snapshot? Is it an 18-month snapshot? 5-year history? When the data that you're providing us in terms of numbers of calls, what's the band of date that you would be sharing that with us?
So it'd be a sliding, Madam Mayor, Councilman Kavner, it'd be a sliding year scale. So developments that we're looking at now that are coming up, whether they're pre-apps or their applications are in, we will take that month that they're coming in and go back a year. I hope I'm answering this right. And so we go back a year, and then the ones that come in October, it's just a sliding year.
A 12-month snapshot.
Yeah, it's a 12-month snapshot, but it moves throughout the year because we're always moving through as the application comes through.
Great. I think that's it for questions. I would find this valuable. I don't know how the rest of the council would feel, but I think having this added information to me is, there's going to be times where this is going to trigger flags that had we not had this in front of us, we wouldn't even be aware.
And I would add there, to your point, I mean, there are times when we meet with the applicant and I bring stuff up in the room and they address it before we even get to the application process. So a lot of times you may not see that in the final analysis, but that, we've talked about pathways and lighting and making sure they don't create corridors within their open space areas that are going to lead to people being hidden and stuff like that. So we have those discussions already ahead of time to make sure that that's happening. So a lot of that's vetted out before we even get to that point.
Anything else?
Madam Mayor, I have some additional, questions not related to the law enforcement side.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Okay, Mr. Kavner.
Bill, just a couple of thoughts or comments, additional pieces I'd like to see. First, this is fantastic. I think this is probably the resource as a council member that I've been most excited to talk about probably ever. I really applaud the work that you guys have put into this. I think it's going to be easier for us as council and just our average citizens to be able to understand. Was there any conversation in there? It identifies, I think, distance to schools, if I remember correctly. And I'm curious. I know that we often reach out to the district for comments. A piece that I think that would be beneficial is to know the distance of the closest elementary, middle, and high school, and then where they are in terms of capacity. We hear so often from the public when they come before us that the schools are overcrowded And then we hear sometimes from school administration that, well, that school actually isn't overcrowded. So I recognize that's reliant on our partner in the school district to provide that data, but that's a piece that I'd also like to see included. And then my other question was related to, we call out water quality, which I think is really important for us to be kind of addressing and sharing. But I don't know if we have a metrics in place to say, here's our water quality. I can't recall a time that, you know, the south side has water quality A and north side has water quality A-. I don't think we have anything like that. And I don't know when we talk about water quality if it's binary, that it meets our standards or it doesn't, and if there's been any discussion about that.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'll tackle the first part of that question. Yes, that's still in our community metrics. We do have a placeholder that says distance to schools, so we can provide that information. Now, what I can do is, again, as Mayor mentioned, it's contingent on getting the information from the applicant or that resource in a timely manner. So if the school district doesn't provide information, we can't give that to you. What I can commit to you is I can email Mr. Yoakum and ask him if he's willing to put that in his letter to us so that we can have that information and populate that in the staff report if we get it within the established timeframes that we have in our department.
Well, and the whole idea behind this one was particular, there was an apartment complex on U-Stick, just across from Meridian Settlers Park, where the kids that would have lived there wouldn't have gone to their neighborhood school, they would have gone to River Valley. Yeah. So that would have been noted in here, and then there is a page number that then you can go and reference. Warren?
So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Cavanagh, maybe to answer your water quality question, the thought process behind that when we included that on the list was basically to take a look at a new project and say, all right, is there anything associated with the extension of services to this new project that would maybe negatively impact water quality, i.e., is it going to be a long dead-end line out to this that may cause us a problem with stagnant water, that we would have to flush more often, and make sure that we relayed that information to you so that you could consider that in your decision? Or in some cases, is it going to mean that we're going to have to pump wells in order to serve that are maybe higher in iron and manganese, which we know our citizens are not fond of? So is the addition of this going to maybe exacerbate either one of those concerns? We want to make sure that if it does, you guys are made aware of that so you have that information.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I did, and members of the council, I did also want to mention that we did receive quite a few comments from the fire department. We're currently using their new template, their new conditions in the staff report, but I did want to give them a shout out that they've worked closely with us. And some of those metrics are also going to be reflected in this table as well. They just didn't get inserted at this time, but there is a version that I have on my computer back at my desk that I'm happy to send out to you so that you can also see those as well. It just wasn't part of the staff report at this time, but we have worked closely with them and we are using those at this time.
Well, and Chief, I think it would be helpful if you shared, you could email out to council the hypothetical that Joe Bongiorno did and what those comments could look like.
Yeah, and I can certainly give a summary. We've been working with Caleb and Cameron for a couple months now on this. Certainly appreciate their leadership on this. Really, this goes back about 12 months on how to provide council better information when it looks to development. As you know, Chief Bongiorno, Perry before that, provide you comments on access, water supply, those critical code functions, but how do we provide better information regarding travel time, risk factors, reliability of the closest station. So that's the information that we've proposed to be included in the staff report. To Councilman Borton's question about is it worth the staff time, and that's something we had to weigh because it is a lot more information than just the code compliance section. But we felt very strongly that it is worth the staff time to give you better information. I'll give you a good example. We have, as you know, travel time standards that the council adopted. And one of the issues we've recently discovered through better GIS mapping through our IT department is we actually have a development in the western side of the city where we travel through a rural response time standard to get to an urban travel time standard. And so having that information to present to you as council as you're considering development, that this is where this development falls within a travel time standard that you would like to see, is something we haven't done in the past. And it's certainly something that I know Councilman Borden and I have discussed it in the past. How do we provide you better information? So I think we have information now that we're going to be providing that looks at travel time, that looks at risk factors. For fire, risk factor is a big deal. A residential development is a lot lower risk factor for us, meaning resource allocation, resource tie-up, than say a commercial development or certainly an industrial development. There's a different level there. And so how do we provide you information on what that risk factor looks like as far as resource allocation should we have a fire in that development that you're considering? So I'm very comfortable with where we've landed and the information we can provide you outside of simply code compliance.
Thanks, Chief. Any further questions?
Madam Mayor, just two quick ones. The ACHD staff report, and then maybe it's referenced somewhere else, but that was one of the earlier comments is some quick reference. It says the staff report's in and the hearing's completed or not.
Yeah.
Is that one of the, did I miss it?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we don't have that in here at this time, but we can certainly
It's kind of a
put
yes
that in there,
or no.
that
Yeah.
yes or no on the ACHD comments, certainly yes.
Report complete, yes. Hearing complete. Okay. And the other is, can the applicant be asked to provide the school district data rather than us have to gather it? And as part of their submittal, maybe that's another topic for another day, but can't they provide our project is, here's the schools, the distance, and their capacity? And
Madam Mayor,
they go gather that information?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Borden, certainly we can send that to them at pre-app meetings and say, please include that in your narrative, or at least try to help us with that information. It's something that we can discuss at pre-application meetings with them, and then hopefully they'll respond well and give that to us.
I think it would be helpful if council has specific things they would like to get from the other agencies, that we make sure they know the kind of information we need to make a decision on. So if there's something that is not included from ACHD or the schools that we currently don't get, we should be saying this would be helpful for us to have in making our decisions. Caleb, did you have something to add?
Maybe just to add a little bit to what Bill said. I mean, the distance to schools, either we could get or the applicant could get. Ultimately, it still comes down to the school district, though, to provide the information either to the applicant or to us about what the overcrowding situation is at the school. So I don't, we could even amend our checklist for the application submittal, though, and require them to say, oh, this is the home elementary school, here's how far it is from our site. That's fairly simple, and we could have our Planning and Zoning Commission approve an amendment to the checklist for submittal. If, again, that's information, it's pretty easy for us, too, to figure that out. I mean, it's a couple of minutes, but it may make sense to put that on the applicant. It saves us the few minutes it takes. I mean, that adds up. Every few minutes helps.
And maybe the capacity issue might be.
But again, the capacity issue goes back, it's either us or the school's the only one that really knows that. They're the ones that have to provide it. So I hate to put our applicants kind of in that pickle of like, we won't process their application until they get this information from the school district. I kind of like what the mayor said. We can reach out to the school district and say, hey, on a regular basis, our council wants to know what, and they could even maybe provide it at the beginning of the year for all the schools, and we have it. You know, and then here it is, and we can report for that school, here's what it was as of, September 1. And then it could just be a yearly thing, and we report that out. We'll talk to the school district about that, and also applicants at pre-apps and other things, too.
Okay, anything further on this? Okay, thank you, Bill, for all the time and effort you and Caleb and Cameron have been doing in gathering information, seeking it. I just appreciate Lieutenant Coliani for being here, and again, point out Joe Bongiorno. I know he's eager to submit his comments, and he got that to us very early in the process. So thank you so much for everyone kind of rallying behind this and looking at what you feel is good information that you feel is important in making those decisions and seeking feedback on if it resonates with the elected officials. Thank you. Okay. Item 8E is, I believe, Caleb's.
So, Madam Mayor, if you're okay, I'm going to at least start my presentation from here and not go up to the podium. If you guys are all right with that, I got a couple things I'll probably go back and forth on the screen.
Oh, that works
right.
fine.
Okay. So this is, again, so I don't get so long-winded, I kind of have broke up all things transportation and covered some of that in the department annual summary. I've got a couple things here, but largely what you're going to hear about now is ACHD's integrated 5-year work plan. The initial draft was, sorry, let me do one thing at a time. Oh, you already changed it, thank you. So the ACHD Commission released on July 18th what they call the initial draft of the integrated 5-year work plan. So that is projects that the Highway District plans to do over the next 5 to 7 years. You know, kind of funds dependent, but it's looking forward, the projects they look to tackle. And again, the next 5 to 6, 7 years, they have a preliminary development, which is the out years of the program. But they've submitted that to the public for comment, and of course, us being an agency that submits comments to them on a fairly regular basis, are seeking our input on that. Shared this with the Meridian Transportation Commission on August 6th. It wasn't a very long conversation. Generally, the sentiment from them was that they were thankful for some of our highest priority projects, the priority list that they draft, and then you tweaked it a little bit this year, but it was essentially the list of projects that they recommended to you was sent on to ACHD. Our top priority projects are generally in alignment with ACHD's priorities. So that was kind of the sentiment from the Transportation Commission, was one of thanks. You know, obviously we want more to be done, but at least it's not, our priority projects aren't on their list and their priority projects aren't on our list. At least the top priority projects are the ones that seem to be moving forward for the most part. So kind of to that end, I prepared a draft letter, which the clerk has included in the packet, so you should have access to that letter. But the mayor does have one on letterhead. If there's changes, I can make them relatively quickly and print that if you don't like the messaging in there. The part of the letter so I kind of, again, took what the Transportation Commission's thought was to thank ACHD for their time and their effort and general appreciation for the projects that are in there. Also highlighted, though, really the relationship with ITD and how 2026 is a priority, recognizing that's not on ACHD's system, but it all works together as a system. It's not us and them or state and local. People that drive on the state system also drive on the local roads and vice versa. So that's really kind of what the letter says is, hey, if we can help you in any way advance these projects that are on the state system, let us know what, as a city, we can do to let the state know that there's some priorities that really will help the overall network perform better. So I took some liberties in that, so that's why I wanted to just call it out to you. That wasn't something from the Transportation Commission. That's just me and kind of, again, where Linda Road Overpass 2026, I think those could be some great projects in our community if we could get the ball moving forward on them. Neither one of those are going to be accomplished overnight, but I think they're well, I know they're higher priority projects for our community. But anyways, I called them out in the letter, but if you don't like that and want to talk about something else, that is fine as well. But let me get into a little bit of the changes that are in the initial draft first. So on the screen, you see we had some summer interns in our department, and I asked them to put together this summary. It's largely from the information that ACHD provides to us, but this is Meridian specific. So these aren't all the changes. These are just the changes in Meridian or our area of impact to projects. So I'm going to run through those real quick. So under the new projects heading, there are just the one new roadway project, 10 Mile Victory to Overland. And that's moving right in, right? 2021, that's advanced pretty rapidly into the program. Intersection projects, you can read those. I did want to just highlight community programs projects real quick. We have 44 requests that we sent to ACHD, and there's 15 of those requests in the integrated 5-year work plan. Boise has a lion's share of those community programs projects. So those are your sidewalk gap projects, your bike lanes, your crosswalks, those types of things, which kind of makes sense. They're an older community and have a lot more subdivisions and neighborhoods that lack that kind of infrastructure, where we generally are newer and require that through development to provide those types of things. But I do want to call out, and as I do that, let's see if I can. I'm going to switch off of this initial draft slide for just a minute. I want to go and show you a cool tool that ACHD, and they've been using it for a while now. So they have their integrated 5-year work plan on their website, achdIdaho.org. And then if you scroll to the bottom right, there is integrated 5-year work plan available for public comment. So again, we'll provide comment as the city, but you can also do that as a citizen. If you have individual comments you want to relate to them, that's great. I'm going to just show you, for example, so you can look at the whole program. I'm going to go to community programs since that's where we're at. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Interactive project map. And I'll turn on at the top, there's some tabs, and you can look at kind of the same thing. Here's your roadways and intersections. Here's your bicycle and pedestrian. And again, I'm going to click on that. You can look at maintenance, bridge, so on and so forth. I just wanted to highlight this one project that was on the other sheet. This one wasn't on our priority list, but it's kind of an interesting one. It's unfunded in the initial draft, but Linder Meridian Bikeway, Pine Avenue to Temple Drive. So kind of a mid-block, low-stress bikeway that ACHD has in there. And again, it's unfunded, so it really is more at concept level, but would be off in between your arterial roadways, kind of mid-block. But my point more here is to show you this tool. And if you want to look at any of the projects and see where they're at, it gives a summary. And you can enter your comments. Boy, this project should be done sooner. Or no, I don't like this project at all. Or I wish this project had a signal here. Whatever, but you can do that for any of these projects, and you can enter your own comments there, and they'll be considered as part of this process. So really cool, interactive, a way to get feedback from folks on anything that's in the integrated 5-year work plan, and again, it's broken up by categories. I should also say, before I go into more of the changes, that it's interesting just to kind of bring this back into perspective. So we think of these things a lot of times at the city level of, boy, I had to wade through two cycles at the signal there, and so we need to get that intersection improved. That's important. I just kind of wanted to, it's kind of nice to refresh, I think, just at a higher level from ACHD and their charge. Their primary focus area is maintenance. So maintaining what they've already invested in. That includes bridges, traffic operations, safety, and stormwater. And then their secondary focus then is more your roads and intersections and your kind of capacity improvements. So again, just kind of put that in perspective. Not that these aren't important, but they've established as a policy themselves, primarily they're going to invest in, continue to maintain what they've already invested in, safety, traffic operation, and bridges. Stormwater is also in there. So anyways, just again to kind of let you know what their priorities are. I'm going to jump back to the initial draft changes. So again, here's the summary. Just a couple of other things to highlight. Whoops, where'd it go? A couple of other things to highlight there. I'm going to skip advanced projects, although that's important. You can see we had 3 roadway projects and intersection projects that did advance in the program year over, but the delayed projects. Not just for these projects in particular, But overall, as I'm sure you're aware, bids are coming in higher for a lot of construction jobs. So ACHD wasn't able to deliver as much this last year as they were hoping for, just because the cost to do those projects was higher. They've had to reject some bids and delay some projects just because, again, they weren't getting maybe the pricing structure they were hoping for in some of those projects, or the cost benefit. If you're going to pay twice as much for that roadway, okay, maybe we'll wait to do it when it cools down a little bit. So some of the projects in the program overall were delayed, again, basically because the cost of doing business has increased more than what you would have thought when engineers' estimates were put together. So they've had to delay some projects. And then the final one that I just want to call to your attention is down here on Main Street. There's some thrift stores and there's a pedestrian crossing there, and that project to make that crossing more prevalent has kind of fallen victim to, well, essentially what I was just talking about. It just hasn't risen to the level of warranting spending money on making it more prevalent. Good news is there really hasn't been an incident history there, so that's why it's not there, but we have had some close calls there. So I just wanted to call that to your attention that I don't know if it's people understand, the 3-lane northbound right there. People are more aware and looking for pedestrians more, but I do know, especially when that crosswalk was put in, there were some near misses. It's something we've talked about at the Transportation Commission, but again, sort of a victim of the program balancing and just not having enough funds to fit it in the program. I'm hopeful that maybe someday it can get put back in, not because somebody gets hit or something, but just because it's to avoid that potentially future. So I think, without going, line project by project, which again I do have, it's in your packet. Here's our request, and I do appreciate ACHD, responding, where it's at in the program, and their responses in the far right-hand column. So you have that in your packet. I wasn't planning today to go through that project by project, but this is what we put together, and they've added on to that and kind of responded to it. So I do appreciate that. Again, I do have a draft letter. We have until, that's not a lot of time, but until August 20th is when the public comment period ends for this. So if you're so inclined to authorize the mayor to sign the letter to ACHD, or again, I'm happy to make some changes to it, and if you wanted to send something else out, that would be fine. So, Madam Mayor, with that concludes my integrated 5-year work plan presentation, and would stand for direction, questions you may have.
Thank you, Caleb. Council, any questions? So you're good with the letter as is? I thought that ACHD's comments were really nice to have to give greater clarity and context.
Madam Mayor, I think the letter's great. I think the reference on the...
Is your thing on?
Yeah, I'm on. The Chinden Overland and Linder Road overpass, that comment I think is well placed and keeps it on the front burner of what we want to have back in, if at all possible.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, item 9, anything for item 9? Just a couple of things. There's a cash mob on Friday through Sunday for our Main and Pine businesses that have had an impact from the road construction. Filled the Bucket fundraiser at the Village on Saturday from 11 to 4. And a joint meeting with MDC next Tuesday that starts at 4 o'clock. If there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Borton.
We go into executive session pursuant to 74-206-1D, F, J, A, B, D. Not it.
D.
All of those.
Second.
Second, I have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Palmer. Aye. Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
All right.